heated seat, again connected to your phone. Setting menu is right here, where you select to go in to screw up your experience completely, if that's what you want to do.
Just leave it in touring. Maximum power though.
Where you can, like I said, you can
full power smooth. That's perfect.
Yeah, full power smooth.
Let's leave that. Yeah.
Traction control, ABS, wheelie control, quick shifter, suspension. This is neat because you can adjust for comfort and medium.
Nice. Let's leave it
and then
medium.
yeah, just the defaults are fine. Trust me. Rear, same thing.
That's nice.
Okay. Now, the nifty thing also is you can adjust preload electronically on the rear as well.
Nice.
Okay. Now it's set in the defaults, but you can adjust it automatic, within the independently.
Right.
Okay. Info display, yada yada yada. Pin code. All that kind of goofy stuff. Tire calibration. So it's got the same kind of thing as a Panigale. Where if you change tires, like particularly if you change from the road tires to the STRs, the Scorpions, you run the tire calibration because they have a different diameter. Okay. Toot. Yada 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 yada. Anyway, so that's that. We have the preload on automatic, which is this button right here. It'll scroll through. Let you change the load. Okay. Or you just let it sense the load and do it itself.
Clever.
Okay. Change the mode with the mode, and then select whatever you're in. We're going to leave it in touring.
Yep.
There we go. And the rest is, cruise control. The adaptive cruise control is actually released this week.
Okay.
It has not been installed on this unit as yet.
Okay.
There's a certain amount of rigmarole to go through to obviously install it.
Right.
But it literally became available this week.
Okay.
So
it's not working right now.
No.
I won't worry about that.
But it does have. It has standard set
standard cruise
control,
like I have. Yeah.
And then these buttons are not operable at this moment because that's the distance button on the adaptive cruise control.
That makes sense.
Currently. Okay.
Okay.
And the rest of it is the standard shit, that we're used to.
One finger. That's really nice. Put it wherever you like it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the electronics and technology on this bike because that would be a whole video by itself, and I'm sure you've all heard all about those things already. I'm not the first one to do a first ride of the new Multistrada V4. I'm actually pretty late to the game, and I apologize for that, but instead I just wanted to give you my riding impression as a former and current owner of V-twin Multistradas. Back in 2018, I had purchased a 2015 Multistrada, which I rode from Chicagoland to Kansas City, as well as to Austin, Texas for the Circuit of the Americas MotoGP race. And I currently own a 2019 Pikes Peak 1260 Multistrada, which I so far have ridden to the tail of the dragon. The very first thing I noticed about the new Multistrada V4 is just how easily it falls over into turns. The Ducati Multistradas have always had really great sporty handling, kind of like tall, comfortable sport bikes. But this new V4 seems to just fall over even easier. The initial turn-in actually scared me for a moment, as I wasn't expecting it to want to lean over so quickly and easily. The little waterproof cubby to hide your phone away is a super nice feature. You can connect it to power in there to charge it, as well as use navigation off your phone on the main dash screen. Now that's something I wish my Multistrada had for sure. The engine is very smooth, at least compared to a big thumping V-twin like my 1260 Multistrada has. The V4 is a completely different experience, both in smoothness and power delivery, as well as how refined the gearbox feels. The quick shifter, both up and down, changes gears without affecting the bike almost at all. Downshifting on my 2019 Pikes Peak 1260 V-twin is clunky in comparison. The transmission and shifter on this new Multistrada V4 is absolutely perfect. Mid-range torque is strong, feels very good. There isn't as much of an initial kick as the big 1260 twin hits you when you crack the throttle. Instead, the torque comes on strong and smooth. That's a word you're going to hear a lot from me in this first ride review, smooth. Everything about the bike is just very smooth in comparison with the previous generation V-twin models. But the bike is very fast. I don't know if it's really any faster than my Multi 1260. It's only a 10 horsepower difference after all, but it feels at least as fast, if not a little faster. The engine does seem to spin up a little bit quicker, as you'd expect from a Panigale-derived V4. The windscreen and the little side windscreens really work very well. The wind protection is very good, and up or down. It did allow some air to come in from the sides to keep you cool, but blocking the big blast of wind from your face and your chest. The mirrors were also fantastic. They didn't vibrate at all, and I could see a lot behind me, so that's always a really welcome feature on a Ducati. Seating position is typical Multistrada. It's comfortable and upright with wide bars. The seat was a little bit firmer than I like. I prefer the softer, slightly more plush seat on my 1260 Pikes Peak, but still very comfortable. There does seem to be more bike in front of you. That feeling that you're sitting in the bike rather than on top of the bike is a little bit more pronounced on this one than on mine, where the dash and everything in front of you kind of is like a little bit more in front of you, a little bit further ahead. Clutching out of first took a little getting used to. The clutch catches later than the 1260 clutch, and the engagement feels like it's drawn out a little bit more. It's not a problem, just something I noticed. It does have a luxurious hydraulic clutch, just like all the previous Multistradas have. And the mid-range torque is really good, especially past 6,000 RPMs. This bike feels like my Multistrada 1260 was sent to finishing school, then put on a suit and went to a corporate job. But still has some tattoos under the shirt sleeves. It's got a much more refined feel to it all, which for long interstate rides is a good thing. But if it's going to be your only sport bike, you might actually prefer the previous V-twins since it's more raucous and wild in comparison. Even though it's very smooth and refined compared to previous Multistradas, this bike is so very fun. And that up-down quick shifter is just so good, so much better than my bike. Having electronically adjustable suspension is great for a touring machine. You can set the suspension to be firmer for twisties and softer for long highway. You can also set how many passengers you have, whether you have bags or not, and you can automatically set the preload, or you can have the bike auto level and set the preload itself. So the options there are really fantastic. I do feel that I prefer a 17-inch front wheel for road riding, but this Multistrada was very flickable, and the handling felt great. The amazing V4 in this thing just loves to rev. Often I had the RPMs higher than I normally would on my V-twin because of how smooth it is. It just doesn't feel like it's a big deal to have it running at high RPMs. There's no vibration, no buzzing in the handlebars, nothing. Basically, the bike is going faster than it feels. Another important thing to note is the low RPMs are not a problem at all. This engine can handle spinning around 2500 RPM without any issue. It's not lugging or chugging. It's at least as good as the DVT V-twin is with its variable valve timing, or maybe even smoother. I think it might even be smoother way down low. Of course, full throttle this low does cause this lady to shake her head a little bit in disapproval, but it's nothing you and her can't handle. Gonna pull in here to find a nice spot to do a walk around. That larger 19-inch front wheel, which is better for going off-road, it doesn't affect anything at normal riding speeds, but I do feel it here with very slow speed maneuvering. I had to put my foot down. So for anything off-road, it's good to have a bigger front wheel, and this Multistrada is now, trying to be more of a multi-strada, but just for road riding, like on my Pikes Peak, which will never go off-road, I do prefer a 17-inch front wheel. Let's take a nice look at her. I do really love this color. Obviously, the looks of this new Multistrada are very different than the more sporty-looking previous generation. In general, I prefer my generation Multistrada in terms of looks, but this one being more of an adventure bike now, it looks more purposeful, kind of like a BMW GS, but much prettier with nicer lines. It's no longer pretending to be a tall sport bike, but rather matured into being more of a true adventure bike, more of a true Multistrada, which means various streets in Italian. The dash is just fantastic. I really love it. It's big, it's bright, it's sharp, and I love the round analog tachometer. It's almost 80 degrees today, and sitting in traffic, the engine does get hot. It's up to 221 degrees. But my butt is only warm, not hot, and my legs are only feeling a little bit of warmth. So the heat isn't an issue, and that's probably due to the way the engine is vented, along with the rear cylinders shutting off feature. Overall, heat is not a problem, so that's great news for a Ducati. In conclusion, my overall impression is that this new Multistrada is generally a better motorcycle than the previous V-twin Multistrada. It handles as good, if not better. The engine is as strong, if not stronger, but with the benefit of being extremely smooth and having a fantastic transmission with one of the best up-down quick shifters I've had the pleasure of using. The shifter is much better than previous generations. Riding position is very comfortable, the wind protection is excellent, mirrors are excellent, I really can't find a flaw here. However, and this is the rub, if you love Ducatis because of the emotions that they invoke in you from that rumbling and raucous V-twin, the smooth refinement of this bike might make you feel like you're not even on a Ducati. For long distance trips, being in the saddle for hours at a time, going across the country, that might be a very good thing. I would say it's a good thing. It's definitely more comfortable in that regard, and that's what this bike is for. This bike is really made for eating miles and seeing new places, but doing that with a Ducati flair and the fun of 170 horsepower. Comparisons to the BMW GS are unavoidable. I've ridden the 1250 GS, and it's great. These two bikes are very similar, but also very different. The GS feels like it could handle off-road a bit better, but the Multistrada V4 is a lot more fun. It's got more power, it's got almost as much torque, and I think it handles better than the GS. I think it looks better than the GS if we're going to compare those. I also think the Multistrada looks much better than KTM's adventure bike offerings. I do have to admit I've never ridden one. The new Multistrada is a purposeful machine. similar to the way that the GS is. I would conclude by saying that for me, my 2019 Pikes Peak 1260 is a bit more fun, and I prefer it only because I don't ride enough miles to trade the much more sporty and wild machine that the old V-twin is for the more refined touring machine that this new V4 Multi is. But if you are in the market for a true adventure bike to go on long trips, or if you already own a sport bike and are looking for a comfortable long distance bike to add to the stable, absolutely check out the new Multistrada V4. And if you live in Illinois or Northwest Indiana, anywhere around Chicagoland, definitely come over to MCC and they'll take care of you. Tell Scott I sent you. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up.